Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Real Life Fishing. And in this episode, this is part 2 of the Helix 7 dash install and NMEA network installation. Just kind of a brief recap. We've got the power wires run for both the NMEA backbone as well as for the Helix 7. We've opened up the dash opening here to allow the in-dash mounting kit for the Helix 7 to fit in that opening. And we've got the wires run for NMEA down along behind the console here. You can see that here's still the NMEA backbone, but the NMEA connection back to the motor is already pulled behind the remote, as well as the control for the Yamaha troll control, that wire that runs back to the motor. So I've got the hood off of the motor. I did that prior to starting the video, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you, if you don't know how to get the hood off of your motor, then we're probably already in over your head, and you might seriously want to consider having a shop do this for you. I mean, taking the hood off is very simple, right? In any event, in the glass today, again, Weller Special Reserve. Inexpensive, good, hard to find, but get you some. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. All right, everybody. So after spending far too long on the internet trying to figure out, right? So I plugged the NMEA cable in here and tested some stuff to see what kind of output I would get on the graph before I button everything all up, right? And I couldn't get the trim to work. So went online and looked, and according to everybody about Yamahas, you got to connect 2 pink wires together. So this is a VF115, better known as a 115 SHO, and I had a hell of a time finding these 2 pink wires. So let me switch to the other camera and we'll show you where they are. So starting from so you guys know where we're coming from here, right? So we're at the front of the motor here, and coming in, here's all your cables and everything coming in. So right there. So these 2 guys here that are taped together with this yellow tape, that yellow tape needs to come off, and those 2 wires need to be, the covers need to be pulled off, and those need to be connected together. So just so you guys know where all that is. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then I'll show you what that looks like after we're done. Okay, so after we fished this through and got the tape off of there, you can see that these wires are in fact pink. Hopefully you can make that out here. Lighting's kind of difficult with this. Let me see if I can. So there we go. You can see that these wires are in fact pink. So we need to connect these 2 together. So here's the caps that covered that. And then this is what the wires look like. Right? So just a male, female, and there's the connected wires together. So let's go and see what our trim looks like now. Hey, look at that. We've got a trim reading. So I configured this one here to be trim 1, or trim for engine 1. So let's see if that moves. It sure does. Look at that. Good times. Okay, so the first thing worth noting, once you get all this stuff wired up, is that you're not going to get anything from the engine unless the key is on. You don't have to start the engine. You don't even have to bump it. I've seen some guys report that they had to bump the engine in order to get some stuff show up. That is not true. Just key on. will give you a tack that is not dashes, right? You'll see we got 0 on the tack. It'll give you a trim indicator and engine hours I chose here, right? So as you guys well know, I just picked this boat up August of last year. So last season I put 35 hours and 6 minutes on it on the outboard. So that's not too bad. This screen did not look like this when I first fired all this stuff up, right? So you can change all the data that's displayed on here and choose what you want to see. That was not easily found. Humminbird is not very forthcoming with NMEA information. So how did we get there, right? So we're going to go menu, and then we'll go the setup tab, and hopefully this comes out on the video. You guys can see this, but from setup, we're going to go down to select readouts is what we want. So you go there, and now this brings up a small overlay, right? So this is the dash view here. So RPM is in the center. You can't change that, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? These here, the left, the right, and the bottom 4, you can choose what you want displayed in there. This is always going to be a tack. So again, menu, setup, and select readouts. And so now readout 1 through 6, they're numbered here in this small diagram, so you can see exactly what's where, right? So you select the one that you want, whether it's depth, speed, system, vessel, environment, or engine 1, engine 2, or wind, right? Depending on the sensors that you've got installed, right? So mine is vessel. And then there's individual values underneath those that you can choose, obviously, right? So to get to the next level, then you press the check mark. And from here, you can choose the different things that are available under vessel. Now, I only have tank 1. I only have a sensor for tank 1. I don't have a tank 2, and I also don't have trim tabs, so that's why I don't have sensors for those. But, so of course, you know, if I want fuel, then that's going to be tank level 1. So then the next one, right? So readout 2 on the far side here. So I have this set as trim, right? So engine 1 is where we're getting the data from, and then check mark. And then if we go down, so these are all the things that you can get from the engine, supposedly. I haven't run this yet, but of course you can get RPM. Fuel rate, I hope we can get. I selected that down here. Oil pressure, oil temp, coolant pressure, boost pressure is, I don't have a blower. Engine temp. Engine trim angle is what I've selected for over here on the side. And that's everything that's available here, right? So actually, though, I don't know that I like trim angle over there. So let's put, let's put the fuel rate over there, huh? How about that, right? So I select fuel rate and then select to the right. And now I've got fuel rate per hour over here on the right. And then let's go down to readout 6, which is this box over here where I had fuel rate. And let's put trim over there. There we go. Oh, perfect. See, now that's better looking, right? So now I can see I'm at 14% trim. So if I bump the trim, there we go, 15, 16, 20. That's great. Perfect. Okay. But now my fuel rate per hour doesn't have that detail anymore, right? So let's go back to our menu. Select readouts. Now, number 3, I've got speed over ground in there. Honestly, I really don't care about that. I've got 3 other graphs on the boat that are all going to tell me speed. So let's get rid of that. So we'll go engine 1, and over there we will put fuel rate. So now that'll tell me gallons per hour that I'm consuming, right? So then we've got engine hours, and then we've got temp. So why don't we put the temp under number 2. Engine temp, perfect, okay. And now we've got engine hours are in 4. I'm going to leave those there. But we've got 5 now that used to have temp. So if we go under here, let's just look at everything that's available, right? So under system, we've got time, date, and UTC time, right? I don't need any of that. So under speed, we've got speed through water and speed over ground. Speed through water, I believe that requires another sensor for that. So we're probably not going to get anything for that. Speed over ground just comes from GPS, which we don't care about. Depth, I don't have any depth sensors, so there's not going to be any data there if we pick that. Vessel, we already looked at. Oh no, we get other stuff here now. We get course over ground, heading. Oh, I guess each of the different displays, there's additional stuff too. Nice. So we can get position, rate of turn, pitch, roll. So pitch and roll, I am getting that data. Pitch and roll is coming from this Lowrance 0.1 here. This is a NMEA 2K GPS puck. So what else do we get? Altitude, tank level 1, tank level 2, total fuel, fuel economy, trip fuel. Wow, lots of stuff. So let's try fuel economy. Nah, we'll have to test out some of this stuff, I think, when we're on the water, right? I mean, heading we're going to get, right? So heading's 296. And then again, that's coming from that 0.1. But again, I really don't care about the heading because I've got two other graphs that are going to tell me my lat, long, heading, all that stuff, right? So I don't need that displayed on here. But so let's see what else is available. So what's position? Nothing useful. Rate of turn, well, we're not turning. Pitch and roll, I don't need. Altitude, I don't think I'm going to get. Tank level, fuel economy. Yeah, some of this we're going to have to mess with. We'll have to mess with on the water, I think, when the engine's running and see what kind of data we get. But so then under environment, we don't have any of these sensors, so we're not going to get any of that. Engine 1, let's see what else we get here. So engine RPM, hours, fuel rate, we've already got. That's over here. Oil pressure, oil temp. Now again, not all of these things might show, right? Like coolant pressure, I'm relatively certain, at least for the Yamaha that I've got, that another coolant pressure sensor is actually needed. It will feed that information through the NMEA 2K network. However, from what I've read, there is no coolant pressure sensor built in that feeds NMEA 2K data, so you have to get one. Boost pressure, like I said, I don't have a blower. Engine temp, we've already got, that's over here. Engine trim angle, that's down here. Right, so the E1 is engine 1 on these, right? So temp E1, trim E1, that's engine 1. If you had multiple engines, then, you know, if this is an offshore boat or something, or, you know, a bigger center console. Okay, so that's everything we've got available here, right? So what are we looking for then? Fuel rate, I guess? No, fuel rate we've got there. We don't need that. What do we want? Oh, let's see what else we got. So after engine 1, engine 2, we don't have an engine 2. After engine 2, we've got wind, which we don't have any wind sensors on the boat either, so that's not going to do us any good. So something from engine 1 is going to go in there, right? But so gallon per hour is over here, so what do we want? I guess oil pressure, oil temp, coolant pressure, engine temp. I've already got engine temp up here. Yeah, we can go oil pressure, I suppose. Oh, we'll figure that out when we're on the water. But so this is the main screen that I'm going to have up that I'm going to be looking at, right? It'll have fuel rate, trim angle, engine temp, fuel level, engine hours, just so I know what they are. and the tack, right? But then you also get this screen here. So this doesn't really have very much in it at all. Speed through water, speed over ground are both blanks. Position's a blank. Course over ground. Like I said, I think some of this stuff, you know, NMEA 2K depth, we're not going to get. Air, we're not going to get. Can we change what's on this screen? Yeah, we sure can. Look at that. So we can program this to be whatever we want to also. So to do that, I just made sure we were on this screen. And then while we were on this screen, I went to Setup and select Readouts. And so now here's my 9 boxes, and I can pick whatever I want to put in these 9 boxes, right? So depth is not one of them because I don't have anything for depth. So system, let's put the date about. Yeah, we're not getting anything for date or time. I'm going to have to look at that, but it's most likely because we can't actually get data from the Humminbird in here. Right, this only displays NMEA 2K data, and I don't have a date or time source. So, whoop, menu, select Readouts. So let's see vessel. What do we got here? So we've already got pitch and roll on here. We can put the fuel tank. Yep. Okay, so we'll get fuel in box 1. Environment, I don't have any environmental sensors, so engine 1, we can put RPM. Readout 2, engine 1, we can put engine hours. And readout 4, let's see, engine 1, we can put fuel rate. Readout 5, engine 1, we can put oil pressure. Readout 6, engine 1, we can put oil temp. Readout 7, engine 1. Like I said, coolant pressure, I'm pretty sure we're not going to get. I'm honestly not sure if we're going to get oil pressure either. I'll let you guys know once I'm out on the water. We can put engine temp in there. Readout 8. Is there anything else from engine 1 I want? No. So we don't have any wind, so we'll just go to vessel and we will choose pitch. And readout 9 then we'll make roll. Whoop. There we go. So there we go. There's oil pressure. That'll be oil temperature, fuel rate, engine hours, tack, fuel in the tank, engine 1 temperature, pitch and roll. We'll see if we actually get either of these values here. I'm guessing we're not getting anything because the engine's not running, but we'll see. So this is our other view here then. So we can, I'm guessing we can probably change all this stuff too. So let's see. So view. Select readouts. Yep, sure enough, look at that. We can change all 10 of the items that are on here. Yep, so I think I've shown you guys enough of this. We don't need to spend a whole ton of time about how to do that. This is the display that I'm planning on keeping up when I've got this thing mounted, right? So I've just got a big tack with a digital display here. And I wanted this because the Yamaha troll control that I've got, according to Yamaha, when you bump that thing up or down, it changes the engine speed by 50 RPM per bump, right? And so I really, for trolling, for repeatability, I really want to know exactly where my tack is at. Plus, I really think that I need a different prop on this boat, and so I need an accurate RPM to go along with the speed so that I can figure out exactly what prop I want to put on there. And then, of course, everybody wants to know how much fuel is is left in the tank, right? And engine temp is a good thing to have. Fuel rate, if you're going to make long runs or you're out on big water, knowing how much fuel you're consuming is important, so that you can properly estimate, how far your range is, at least in terms of hours. Supposedly, I can get miles per gallon on this thing too. I'm not sure exactly. That's probably, where is that going to be? That's probably, yeah, so that's probably going to be fuel economy, I'm betting, right? So that's not available in all of these gauges, right? So here, instead of this oil pressure one, I think I'm going to put fuel economy, and we'll see what we get when we're out on the water anyway. But select readouts, so 5. We are going to make that vessel and fuel economy. Yep, that's exactly where it is, miles per gallon. Fuel economy is miles per gallon. So I've got my fuel rate here, my fuel economy here. So you know what? I'm just going to flip these. So I've got economy next to rate, and engine hours will be... You know what? I'm not even going to put engine hours on this main screen. I really don't care about that. So I'm going to... I do. I'd like to know it, but I don't need to see it here. So we're going to put engine hours... Oh, look, it's already right there. Perfect. Okay, so... So 4 vessel, and we're going to make that fuel economy. Perfect. So now I've got 5. This can be something. What do I want this to be? What do we got available here? So course over ground, heading, trim tabs I don't have, position, rate of turn, pitch roll, altitude, fuel level, fuel distribution, I don't know what that is. Fuel time, total fuel, fuel economy, trip fuel. This is probably total fuel consumed, which isn't going to be accurate because it's only going to start measuring total fuel consumed since, since I've installed this system, right? So that's going to be nothing. Trip fuel is going to be how much fuel you've consumed on a trip. It's fuel time, I wonder. Perhaps how much fuel is remaining in minutes and seconds? I don't know. We'll have to look that one up, I guess. Some of this stuff we'll probably figure out on the water, messing with it, but fuel distance, I guess, is what that dist is. So fuel distance, because that's measured in miles, right? So that's going to be distance, not distribution. So this is what, how many miles I can go with the fuel that's remaining, maybe? I'm not entirely sure. We'll figure that out. But for now, I do want to find something else useful that I can put there. So... see, something from the engine maybe. I've already got fuel rate over here. Engine RPM, engine hours, oil temp, oil pressure, boost pressure, engine temp, trim angle, we've got trim angle over here. Yeah, we'll go with the oil pressure, I suppose. I don't know. We'll find something to put there at some other point, but for now, I'm pretty happy with this, right? So I got fuel rate, fuel economy in miles per gallon. And just one note, to actually get miles per gallon, we're gonna have to see if this works or not. But my understanding is that you have to have an NMEA 2K GPS puck to feed NMEA 2K data to the unit. NMEA 2K GPS data to the unit, so that can accurately be calculated, right? So that it can figure out how many miles you've gone, and then of course, fuel consumption, the fuel rate you can get from the outboard, and then fuel in the tank and so forth. But distance is the missing piece for miles per gallon, right? The miles portion of that, and so that requires GPS. So if you don't have a 0.1, or if you don't even have a Humminbird, I guess. But if you don't have a Humminbird, you're probably not watching this video, right? But if you're not going to get a 0.1, Garmin also makes one. Or like I said, I'm told, I've Googled around that there is some way that you can hack the Humminbird pucks to feed back data into an NMEA 2K network. I've not done that. I'm really interested in keeping this graph separate from the rest of my graphs. Mostly for the fact that if I wanted to put this, on the same network with the other graphs, I would have to get a second switch because I've only got one port left on my switch. If you guys watched previous videos, you'd know that. But right, so the NMEA 2K bridge to connect this graph to the NMEA 2K network, right, requires this thing here, right? So one end of this is NMEA 2K, and the other end of this is the standard Humminbird Ethernet connector, right? And then you've got to get the dongle to connect them together. So if I wanted to put the NMEA 2K data on my network, I would have to connect that NMEA 2K bridge to the switch, and then I would have to wire this graph to the switch as well, and just all kind of stuff. But so one of the reasons I want to keep this separate is that I also didn't want to have to run power for this all the way back to the battery, right? Because the big reason that you do that is that you don't want any feedback or interference from the onboard electronics or systems on the boat, right? Like for example the live well pumps. Right, I mean that's an electric motor that generates electrical interference, and this graph isn't going to care about that. But the imaging graphs, you can see that interference show up in the imaging, and so I didn't want that, with the imaging graphs, obviously, right? So those are run directly. They've got their own connection to the battery, their own separate fuse, their own everything. That entire network is all wired apart from that. But this one, I didn't care because this is not an imaging graph. I'm not going to display imaging on here. And so rather than run wires all the way to the back, I just opted to use the main bus on the boat because I really don't care if this gets dirty power. But because this could potentially get dirty power, I did not want to connect this then to that Ethernet switch and run the risk of feeding that interference back through the network, into the imaging graphs that I've already worked so hard to isolate. So plus I really don't give a damn about any of this data on any graph except this one, right? The other two graphs, I already have reasons why I use them. They have a purpose. I'm not looking to change any of that. So I'm not worried about that. But this, I wanted this specifically for this information, right? I specifically wanted it for the tack and the engine hours and the trim, because the boat did not have a trim gauge in it, and I really wanted trim. Coming out of bass boats, I really like the ability to look back there and see, where I'm trimmed up. It's much easier than turning around and looking at the motor. And yes, you can tell the difference between trim and tilt. You can hear it, but sometimes the radio is on, sometimes it's windy, whatever. So sometimes you can't hear it, right? So you got to turn around and look at the motor. This will be way easier, right? Over time, I will just learn what number this goes from trim to tilt, or where my max trim is when I'm running, and this will be much easier for me to deal with here. But again, a lot of other useful information, right? Like engine hours. Normally you'd have to go to a dealership to get that, right? Unless you have an hour meter in the boat. But if it's not a digital hour meter, if you get an analog hour meter, you got to put that in there when you buy the boat or when you buy the outboard. Otherwise, that's not going to be correct either, right? And having a digital fuel gauge, I think, is going to be much nicer as well. Not only for the fuel rate in terms of gallons per hour or miles per gallon, but that analog gauge, the needle jumped around wildly, right? So we'll see what this gauge looks like here once we're out on the lake and get into some chop and stuff. But yeah, so there's all the NMEA 2K stuff, and this graph, like I said, is connected to master power, right? So you see right now that master power is on right there. So if I kill master power, there we go, right? So that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted that to happen, right? When I kill master power, just doop, kill this graph here, and we're done. Because as far as I'm concerned, this is just gauges on the boat, right? And I don't want this thing to be able to be turned on, right? If this were wired directly to the batteries, right? I could turn this thing on without master power being on, which doesn't sound like a bad thing, right? And it's not. The bad thing is that if this were wired directly to the batteries, this could possibly be left turned on when the boat's off, which would kill the batteries, right? The large graphs, those come off the boat. Those aren't going to be left on. But this is going to be permanently mounted in the boat, and so I didn't want to have to worry about this being left on, right? So that's another reason that I chose to wire this to the main bus for power on the boat. But so you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing me talk about all that crap. So I'm just going to go ahead and try and get this all buttoned back up here. So I'm going to get to that. All right, so I did admittedly get a little bit of a late start on this project today, unfortunately, because the day job interfered. So had to work late a little bit, not much, but and then hunting for that NMEA 2K trim output on that outboard back there consumed a pretty fair amount of time as well. But in any event, we've got the NMEA 2K network tested, and we've got all the wiring and everything pulled, right? So I just need to figure out where I'm going to stash this giant pile of T's here, this backbone, and to be honest, I'm not 100% sure where that's going to be just yet. I'm thinking I might just zip tie it up. So let me switch to my other camera here and I'll show you guys what I'm thinking. All right, so here's where I'm thinking I might zip tie that up to, right? So inside the dash here, we've got this front to back cross member that provides some support for the dash. So I'm thinking I might just zip tie that backbone network up to the bottom of this. I really don't want to put any more holes in the console. You guys can see my chargers that are mounted in there. All right, now both of my chargers are actually charging. So you can see that, right? And so you'll see on the right, the one battery's blinking green and the other's charging. It's because the electronics were on. That bottom battery, we weren't pulling any power from that. We were just pulling power from that battery that's charging there. And then those other two that are charging, those are the trolling motor batteries there. So I'm thinking I might just zip tie that to that front to back cross member there. It's up in the dash. Haven't decided yet, but I'm thinking that's where I'm going to put that bus bar or that backbone, this here, right? And then, so I've not yet determined where I'm going to put this 0.1. I could run this to the back of the boat. I do have extension cables to run this back and mount this back towards the transom, but it doesn't really matter where this is mounted. So I might just mount it here next to the remote, because then I don't have to extend that. But, you know, then I'm going to have this thing sitting here next to the remote. I don't know how I feel about that either. I think I'd rather have that out of my way. Plus, I don't know that I really want to look at that damn Lowrance logo every time, right? Because so there's just like the Humminbird indicators or heading sensors. I don't know if you guys can see this, but there is an arrow on here, right, that indicates front of the boat. So it would have to be mounted, you know, with that arrow facing forward, which means I'd have to look at that damn Lowrance logo all the time sitting here in the driver's seat. So since I'm not terribly keen on staring at that Lowrance logo all the time, I think I'm going to go ahead and fish another cable through and extend this so that I can mount that on the rear of the boat there. Probably back over by the other puck that's already back there, right? So back there in the corner, you can just barely see it hidden underneath those. The rest of those cables is where my Humminbird puck is. So I'll probably put it back there. It's going to be kind of late. I had not originally anticipated this being a 3-part series on how to do this, but as it turns out, you know, part 2 was getting the NMEA 2K connected to the outboard and getting all that figured out and tested, and figuring out how to display all the data on the Humminbird there, because if the Humminbird was not going to display the data that I wanted, I am not married to Humminbird that much. You know, for my imaging graphs and stuff and sonar recording and all that, I really do like them. But for this particular purpose, if that Humminbird graph was not going to meet my needs and I couldn't get the data that I wanted displayed on that graph, I would have put a Lowrance in that dash, make no mistake. Because in this particular instance, the data was more important to me than the device that was displaying it. I would have preferred that it be Humminbird, and I'm happy that it is. I was able to get all that data, but you know, before I go and button all this up, I wanted to make sure that I could get that. So, you know, we got the hood off the motor, we connected up the trim, so that's working properly now, and you know, we've got engine hours and RPM and all that other stuff that we're supposed to get out of that. So that's exactly what I wanted out of that. But again, it's 7:30. Worked a little bit late tonight. Apologies. So this is going to end up being part 2 of what will hopefully only be a 3-part series, right? Part 3 is just going to be pulling that one other wire to stick to point 1 on the back, so I don't have to look at the Lowrance logo, and then opening up the outboard connection back there to plug in, you know, to actually run the wire for the NMEA 2K and the troll control. So we'll get that done, and yep, should be one more part left. But I've got to go in the house yet. I'm still not done editing number 1, so I've got to get that edited. I'd like to get that published tomorrow night, Wednesday night. This is Tuesday that I'm doing this now, so hopefully I'll get part 1 published Wednesday night, and then I'll get part 2 here that we're just finishing up published. Oh, maybe Friday, Saturday, something like that, and then I don't know. I'll get part 3 recorded here soon, hopefully one day this week. But in any event, I'm rambling. Thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully you guys learned something. You know, hopefully that NMEA 2K setup there doesn't get buried too far into the middle of this video that nobody sees that information. Or hopefully you guys are able to stick with me to, you know, to have seen that. But yeah, go ahead and hit that like button, and I really appreciate it for everybody that watches these. And if you're not subscribed, again, my goal is to get 1 new subscriber with every video. So please, if that's not you yet, be my 1 for today. Should see a picture over there of my truck with a crooked ass trailer behind it. That was my old boat trailer. But again, tonight is not story time, but go ahead, click that, click subscribe, ring the bell if you want to get notified when I publish the next video. Of course, if you watched this one and you made it this far, you probably want to know about parts 2 and 3. So, well, this is part 2, but in any event, thanks for watching. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.